What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan podcast. I know this feed's been kind of on a little bit of hiatus lately, but we're getting things rolling back with the college football season here and alive. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Does Football on 96.9, the legend and Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. On today's show, we got a film. We're going to be previewing and talking all things Troy Trojans football. In order to help me out with all that, I am going to be joined by Jon Johnson, the sports editor at the Dothan Eagle. We will jump into what is he like so far about Coach Parker heading into his first season as the Troy Trojans head coach, his feeling around the team. We'll jump into the offense, defense, talk about quarterback Goose Crowder. Who are some of the players on defense that will replace the stars the Troy Trojans has lost? And then we also look at the matchup with Nevada coming up this Saturday night in the season opener. Of course, Nevada already played this past week in week 0, where they lost 29-24 in a close game against SMU. We also kind of do what we normally do in these previews. I do whatever show I'm doing, reasonable expectations for the Troy Trojans. You can check out Phillip Jordan Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wiregrass Daily News, or wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can also check out the show over at my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports. You can also watch the show over on the Wiregrass Daily News Facebook page. You can email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com and follow me on social media at pjordansec. All right, everybody, joining me right now is Jon Johnson, the sports editor at the Dothan Eagle. We're going to talk Troy Trojans football with them kicking off the season this Saturday night at the Vet against the Nevada Wolfpack. And Jon, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, Phillip, anytime. Glad to be here.
So we're here. We had week 0 last week. Of course, right here in Dothan, both of us, we're, high school football kicked off. So we got that going, and now college football is at full tilt. Just what's your excitement level for the season? Because it's really a new sport, really, when everything going on with the 12-team playoff, transfer portal, NIL, it just doesn't even feel like the same sport it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, and just watching the Georgia Tech Florida State game last week, that was fun and kind of got you amped up for the season. The first week of the season, usually there's not many good games, but that was a great game to watch, and it kind of got you excited. And I watched the Nevada game that night, knowing that Nevada was going to be playing Troy this coming weekend. Wanted to kind of get a feel for what they were like, and really they should have beat SMU. I mean, it came down to the SMU really rallying in the fourth quarter to win that game. So gave me a little feel of what Nevada's like, and I'm excited about Troy opening the season against, a pretty good team.
Yeah, Nevada almost beat an ACC opponent in the SMU Mustangs. Get used to that. I this is off topic, but I think the ACC should drop the Atlantic part of their just call itself the Coastal Conference because
it's hard to keep up with it. I'll be honest with you. It's extremely difficult throughout the country.
I even here locally, we just talking about, high school football a little bit before we got recording. Just keep trying to remember where everybody's at in the regions, because high school football down here is another thing too.
That's right.
So just going in, I think we talked about this around the spring or after spring, but now as we've gone through the summer. Of course, this will be the Troy debut for head coach Jared Parker. Just kind of going into the season, what's kind of like your feeling on kind of where he's at and the job he's done?
Yeah, I've been impressed with him. Not a carbon copy of John Summerall, but about as close as you can get to bring in a coach that's similar to Summerall. High energy. I think he's got the team's attention, very detailed. Very much like Summerall, maybe not as I won't say hard-nosed is the word I'm looking for, but maybe a little more calm demeanor, but very, very similar. I mean, I've been really impressed with how organized he is, and how the coaches and everything in practice seems to go really smooth. Notice that from the very first practice, to be honest with you. And then the scrimmages have been very, flowed very well. So yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised, to be honest with you. Didn't know a lot about him when they hired him from Notre Dame. Didn't know anything about his personality, but he is a lot like Summerall. So I think that's kind of the guy they were looking for, and I think they hit on it.
Yeah, I got to talk with him a little bit before the spring. I had a little interview with him, 15 minutes, and he's straightforward too. Like
Mhm.
he'll give you a pretty much of a straight answer. Won't dance around a lot of questions. Obviously, coach is going to give you coach speak, whatever you ask. But yeah, you can. There's those similarities. I don't feel like he's going to blow up on the sideline, like we saw John Sommerall do sometimes there at Troy, but still, different because offensive guy too.
Mhm. That's right. That is correct.
So when you go into the season, I feel like it's hard to really predict what Troy's going to be this season because there's so many new players, so many unknowns. How's the offense going to look with Jared Parker as the head coach? How's the defense going to look with so many players gone, big name players? Who's going to fill those roles? But what's the feeling you have around this team as they head into the season?
Well, about half the roster's new, so I mean, I'm still trying to learn these guys and names, and it's really like I said, half of the team is new, but the guys that you see coming back that you kind of know about, and then some of the newcomers that have come in, and having watched a couple of practices and scrimmages, you get a good feel for that they're going to be pretty good on both sides of the football. I think. Offensively, they're going to be fine at quarterback, I believe, with Goose Crowder. He learned under Gunnar Watson last year. He came from West Virginia. He's a good quarterback, and he's a real leader, and they really respond to him on that side of the football. And you got a couple of veterans across the front with Eli Russ at center and Daniel King at one of the guards. Both as good of players as you're going to find in the Sun Belt as far as linemen. Devontae Ross is going to be the Jabri Barber of last year for Troy. He's the kind of guy that they're going to get the ball to a lot. A small guy, but can just somehow gets open, and he can really catch the ball. They're going to miss Chris Lewis, who obviously had the cancer and won't be able to play this year. But they've got some good receivers, and you're going to see the tight ends used a whole bunch, I believe, in this offense. They've got some good ones, and just from what I've seen, they're going to throw to them a lot, which is going to open up the wide receivers as well. The running back room is a little questionable. Gerald Green, a transfer from East Carolina, is going to get the start, which that surprised me a little bit because Damian Taylor, who's been there a couple of years, I think they were, well, at least I thought he would be the one going into that role that Kami Vidal held last year. But they love Gerald Green. I mean, his toughness, just the way he runs between the tackles. I don't know that he'll break a lot of runs, and, he doesn't have that great speed. But I think that's who they want at running back to get those tough yards. So I think the offense is going to be fine. I think the defense is going to be better than I thought going into the spring and fall practice sessions. They do got some guys that you're going to recognize, like Phillip Lee and Jordan Stringer, a couple of linebackers that are really good. Luis Medina going to be back across the line. Raymond Cutts is the guy that, will be at a defensive end. The biggest question on defense, without a doubt, is the secondary. All new starters back there. A lot of the names I'm not familiar with, or no one will be when they look at the roster come Saturday. But they're very athletic, but I think that's the question mark. How good are these guys? Because we kind of know what some of these other guys can do at the linebacker slots and across the front, but the secondary is a real concern. And then if you just want to hit on everything, the kicking game, I think, is going to be really solid. Scott Taylor Renfro, the Pike Liberal Arts product, he's really been kicking well as the place kicker. Robert Cole's a really good punter. So I think they're good there. I think they're solid at kicking, solid on offense. Defense, I think, solid, but just that one question mark to me is the secondary.
And the secondary brand new, and of course, I had an article up at Dothan Eagle talking about the depth chart being released and all that stuff. He didn't go the Auburn route where named every defensive player a starter. They did have a depth chart on defense. When I look at the Troy defense, I'd love to get your thoughts. Just that who's going to be the one getting after the quarterback? Because you lose Richard Jubinor and Javon Solomon, who combined 26 sacks last season. I mean,
yeah.
It's bad enough if you're an opposing quarterback, you have to deal with one of those guys, but then you had two of them. I'm kind of curious, like, where do you think that could come from?
Well, maybe Raymond Cutts, who was a transfer in last year. He's a big guy that can make some plays. Phillip Lee's another one I think that will be that guy, the guy that has a chance to come in and do something off the edge. So those guys are the two names that just kind of stand out to me. Brenton Jackson is someone as a linebacker I'm just starting to hear a little bit and learn a little bit about. He's a transfer from Gardner-Webb. And what surprised me is he was named one of the team captains for the season. And for a guy that's coming in as a transfer, I think that speaks volumes. So they really like him a lot. And then you got a guy with experience like Jordan Stringer at linebacker. He can really get all over the field. He's just a real energized player, and I think he's going to be making plays for him. So they got the guys, they got the right pieces. The depth isn't going to be there, I don't think, like a year ago. But then again, as I look at these the depth chart, there's some names I really don't know that much about. So maybe there's some guys there that can really play and be big factors that I'm just not familiar with yet.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Like I said, so many players you don't know. Somebody's going to probably rise up that we didn't know. May not even be listed as a starter right now, but we'll show out when we get to the games. It's all about offense. He talked about Goose Crowder taking over for Gunnar Watson. I mean, John, I felt like Gunnar was there forever. I felt like it was 10 years he was quarterback. I know I talked to Brandon Silvers one time. He said everybody made fun of me for being there for as long as I was. Gunner's been there longer than I have. But Goose Crowder, I mean, just what you've been able to see out of him. Just what do you like about his game?
I think he takes control of things. He's a strong pocket passer. He's not going to hurt you with his legs, but he can pretty much pinpoint the passes. And I've been impressed with his accuracy. I love his demeanor. Just a country boy, man. He just enjoys being out there and playing. I love to interview him because he's just so natural. There's nothing fake about Goose Crowder. Going back to the name Goose, I mean, he's just fun, and but he's a guy that takes charge, and I think everybody respects him on that side of the ball. I think he learned a lot under Gunnar, and like I said, Gunnar was there forever. It seems like, and every year, who was going to beat out Gunnar Watson at quarterback, and then sometimes they did, and then before you knew it, Gunnar was back as a starter. Just such a consistent player he was, and I think Goose Crowder is going to be kind of like that. And I think they're okay in the quarterback room, even if Crowder was to get hurt or doesn't play well. Tucker Kilcrease from Brantley and Matthew Caldwell, who's a transfer from Gardner-Webb, who played at Auburn High. Been impressed with both of them, and Kilcrease is impressed ever since he's been on campus. Summerall really liked him when he was here. And those two, Kilcrease and Caldwell, I don't know who would really be number two behind Crowder. Probably Caldwell because he's played college football. I mean, gotten some game action in college football at Gardner-Webb. But I think either one of those two can step in as needed as well. So I don't think the quarterback situation is a real problem for Troy. I think they got three guys that can get the ball out to receivers as needed. And I think they got the offense that's going to be pretty steady. It's not going to be really an explosive, high-scoring offense, I don't believe. But I believe they're very capable of putting points on the board as good as anyone. And I think the defense is going to be good enough, I believe, to keep opponents, down a bit as well. I think it's going to be a pretty solid team. And to be honest with you, going into spring practices and fall practices, I really didn't believe that. I thought, man, this is going to be a total rebuild at Troy. I don't really believe that anymore. I think they can contend for another title.
Yeah, and I was surprised Damian Taylor was not listed as the number one guy. And I know probably during the summer, as I do every year, I talked with Barry McKnight. He was talking about Jordan Lovett at running back. And then last year they were doing a Trojan talk, and John Summerall, or one of the coaches, mentioned Jordan Lovett. And then he said he's a tough guy to bring down. And then Barry looked over at Javon Solomon, and Javon Solomon just shook his head yes. And if that guy's saying you're hard to bring down, you're a good player. But it kind of feels like you would have to think you're not going to really replace Kamani Vidal, what he did, which is so amazing for Troy. But I kind of wonder, will they kind of, even though Green is listed as the starter, we'll probably see all of them at some point.
Oh, I believe you're right. And I'm glad you mentioned Jordan Lovett, because as I was watching scrimmages and practices, he got the ball in his hands a lot. And I was kind of wondering, Jordan Lovett, he's kind of coming out of nowhere as far as didn't get much time or anything last year. But I think they're really counting on him this year. And like you said, with Green as the starter and then Taylor as well, yeah, I think we're going to see all three of them. And then you'll finally see who kind of emerges as the leader back there. But yeah, Lovett's going to get the ball. In fact, they like throwing to him as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I guess too. You mentioned, of course, Chris Lewis, and Drew Barber transfers out, goes to Texas A&M. And Devontae Ross too. I mean, we remember last season, Chris Lewis, all those one-handed catches. Devontae Ross had a few of them as well. I mean, for me, I'm kind of interested. Who's going to be that number 2 guy? Who's going to step up, kind of in that role?
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Landon Parker, who was there last year, transferred in last year, but didn't get a lot of touches. I think he's going to be a factor, there. And like I said, look for the tight ends. I mean, they've got some big ones, and I think they're going to throw to them a lot over the middle. So I think that will be a big part of their passing game. Devontae Ross just amazes me because I'm a little guy, and then I stand next to him and I think, how in the world is he playing college football? Because I feel like I'm gonna feel like I'm bulkier than he is. Obviously not as quick, but it's just weird for me to be standing next to a guy that I'm basically the same size of, and he's a real factor on the football field. Just got great hands, and Crowder and him really have a connection. So I'm interested in, Chris Lewis was a big guy, tall guy. They threw it up and he went and got it. Ross is a different receiver, but he's still the same type. Again, a lot like Jabri Barber, and I think that's how they'll use him.
So looking at this Saturday night at the Vet, as I mentioned at the top, that we'll be hosting Nevada. I guess it's how you look at it. Maybe Nevada's got advantage because they played a game, or maybe Troy's got the advantage because now they know what to expect out of Nevada. And look, Nevada doesn't know what to expect out of Troy. New staff, new players. Of course, they lost to SMU 29-24, but as you said, I mean, they had that lead going in the fourth quarter. Yeah. When you look at this game, what do you think is going to be the keys for Troy to come out with a victory?
They got a pretty versatile quarterback. I can't recall his name at the moment, but he can pass or run. He's real fast in the pocket. So I think rattling him a little bit perhaps will be a difference maker if you can kind of slow their offense. Wasn't that impressed with their defense, quite honestly. So I think Troy's going to be able to put some points on the scoreboard against them. But I think it's just containing the quarterback. And I think if the defense does that, it's going to make things tough on Nevada. A couple of things I would like to just mention on them that's interesting local-wise. I did an interview with a couple of them yesterday, and that we'll release that, I think, on either tomorrow night or Friday on our website. But Torrey Daffin is a guy who played at Carroll of Ozark, and he was Torrey Mulkey when he played at Carroll. This past Christmas, he took the name of his stepfather, and it's a pretty cool story. But he plays as a safety, and he's also on special teams. Torrey Daffin from Ozark coming back home. And then Tyson Williams, who started at Dothan High, is a graduate assistant coach at Nevada. And, of course, Tyson was a great player at Nevada. This is his second year as a graduate assistant. And so 2 guys coming back to the Wiregrass that they're really excited about being able to be in Veterans Memorial Stadium on Saturday. And they're going to have a bunch of family members there. So there will be some Nevada fans there, without a doubt. Pretty good bit of them from Ozark and Dothan.
I know it seems like Nevada has like a pipeline of recruits in Dothan, because that's not the only 2 that's come from Dothan to head out to Nevada. I'm drawing a blank on the player's name, but had a linebacker that went out there too before Tyson did. So, and I remember I was part of the radio team calling some of them Dothan games. Tyson senior, there's a couple of games for those Dothan Tiger teams that probably wouldn't have won the game if it wasn't for some big plays made by Tyson Williams.
Yeah, he was such a great athlete. And I think he's loving coaching. I think he's kind of found his thing there. And so I think he's going to be a good coach in the future as well. But, yeah, it's fun that those guys are coming back to have who would have thought a connection with Nevada and Troy? And I don't know how, Troy got Nevada on the schedule. That's kind of a weird mix there. But to me, it's a real intriguing matchup for our first game.
It's kind of a big game, because then when you look at the next 2 weeks, you're at Memphis, which will be tough. I mean, Memphis is a good team, especially when they're at home. And then you'll have to go out to Iowa, which, I mean, probably score 10 points. You could beat Iowa, John. I don't think the offense is all that good out there. But then Florida A&M. So this is a big one to kind of start things off with those 2 coming behind it before you jump into Sunbelt play.
Yeah, I think it's really big because I think realistically they're going to have a tough time winning at Memphis and Iowa. So if you don't get this one at home, you start the season at 0-3. That's really tough. So it is a big game for them. It really is. So I think it's important for them to get off on the right foot, and then you go into Memphis and Iowa with at least some confidence and a chance to maybe pull an upset because I think Memphis is a top 25 caliber team. Iowa as well. So it's going to be important that Troy gets wins when they can, and this is one of them Saturday, though it will not be easy at all.
Yeah, and you look at the team, of course, obviously everybody looks forward to the big matchup with South Alabama, which, they have a new head coach too. And then also Texas State Thursday night game, just some kind of highlights of the season, close it out with Southern Miss at the end of the year. What do you view as kind of reasonable expectations for Troy this season?
I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest with you. Let's say 7 wins or so. I do think that they can compete for the Sun Belt division crown and maybe a championship. They weren't predicted to be, the top place team in the division or to win the league, but I think they got enough talent to make a run at it. I really do. And I haven't really studied the schedule that much. I'm looking at it now in front of me, but I would be surprised if they're not in the mix. I really would. Now, if you get off to an 0-3 start and you start questioning yourself, and things can spiral downward in a hurry. But I think if they win the games they should win in non-conference play, maybe surprise somebody. But I think in league play they're going to be as solid as anybody. I guess Appalachian State, many people think might be the team to beat, but I think Troy can be right there. I think they've proven that the last couple of years that this program is solid. And even though there's a big turnaround as far as the players, a lot of these players who have come in are coming in because they know Troy is a good football program, and they're good players as well. So we'll see how they do as far as the newcomers. But I think it's a pretty good mix, and I'm a lot more optimistic that Troy can have a good season than I was, a couple of months ago anyway.
Hey, and we know the track record of this program when they hire somebody with Kentucky ties, Neil Brown and John Summerall. So a little extra pressure on Coach Parker, I guess, knowing he's from Kentucky, but it has worked out for the Trojans so far. So we'll see how this Saturday starts. And John, I appreciate you coming on. A good 20 minutes here talking all things Troy football. If the listeners, viewers want to catch you online, where can they find you? And how and where can they check out the Dothan Eagle?
Yeah, DothanEagle.com as far as our website. We have a Facebook site as well if you want to follow or like it on Facebook, Dothan Eagle website, and most of our stuff is posted on there. And then Twitter, I'm at Eagle Sports Ed, and that stands for editor if you're trying to remember it. But Eagle Sports Ed, not because my name is Ed, on Twitter. And I usually will post my Troy stories on there as well. So a lot of different avenues. And if you want to pick up a copy around the Dothan area, there at Walmarts and Dollar Generals and Family Dollars and places like that as well.
All right, sounds good. Everybody go check out Dothan Eagle. Follow John on social media. And John, I appreciate the time, and I look forward when we can do this again.
Thank you, Phillip. I enjoyed it.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits 106.7 KMX, Today's Country 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7, Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right, and once again, thanks to Jon Johnson for coming on the show. I always appreciate John taking time. Known John for a long, long time. Does a great job covering all things high school sports, Troy, Alabama, or anything sports related over there at the Dothan Eagle. Just real quickly, Troy interesting coming in. A lot of questions. Coach Parker, who are the stars? Who are going to step in for the big name players that Troy had relied on the last 2 seasons, winning back-to-back Sun Belt titles? Defensively, my big thing, John's talking about secondary, that is concerned. I know these guys were starters for Troy last year that are on the depth chart, but also getting after quarterback pressure, because when you lose guys like Richard Jubinor and Javon Solomon, that's kind of like my question there. And then my big thing with Troy, offensively, just who's the number 2 guy receiver? I think the running backs are good. I feel like Goose Crowder will do a good job at quarterback. I feel like the offense is actually not as big as a question. I think some people may make them out to be, just because you bring in an offensive coach. Sean Reagan's coming in offense coordinator. You got some players that have been around, a good offensive lineman. I think a good group of running backs. No, not one of them is Kamani Vidal, but all 3 of them could potentially equal his production. But who's going to be that second receiver side? Devontae Ross, as we mentioned. Chris Lewis not being there this year, and then of course Jabri Barber transferring to Texas A&M. When I look at the schedule for Troy, I do think they're going to beat Nevada this week. And then you look at Memphis, at Iowa. Those are going to be some tough matchups. Right now, you're asking me, sorry, Troy fans, I would say they lose those 2. You beat Florida A&M. You should beat Louisiana Monroe. That gets you to 3-2. Texas State's going to be tough. Thursday night game, I plan on being there in Troy. But, Texas State is looked at as one of the favorites. So if they, let's just say Troy's 3-3. I think Troy can beat them, but let's go with that. I think they beat South Alabama. I think they beat Arkansas State. I think they beat Coastal, and I think they beat Georgia Southern. So I think they're going to run at least every 4 straight wins. Now you're at 7 wins. You go at Louisiana. That's a winnable game in Southern Miss. So Troy could win 7-8 games, I think, but potentially more. We'll just have to see how this group of players mold and fit together. But I do think they will beat Nevada on Saturday night. I would give it a score of 31-24. The Troy Trojans will come out on top on Saturday night. And that's going to do it for this edition of the pod. We'll be back next week. So if you're subscribed to the Phillip Jordan podcast, we'll be putting the Wiregrass High School Football Report, Talking SEC, also on here. And I have their own individual feeds as well. But just throwing all my stuff that I do on one feed. If you just want to follow just everything I do, this is the spot. But those people aren't going to be listening to this one. But for the people who do only want the high school show or just want the SEC stuff, those shows have the individual feed as well. Make sure to check out the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show Thursday night tonight at 8 o'clock Central Time on 96.9 Legend. But if you do happen to miss it, we have a podcast for that as well. Dothan High School Football. Just look it up. It's there. Subscribe. You'll get the Coaches Show. Actually, you'll get an extended edition of the Coaches Show. So the podcast version this week is longer than what the radio version is. So go and check that out as well. All right. I hope everybody has a great weekend. High school football Friday night. College football. College football will be on Thursday and Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We have a weekend loaded, Labor Day weekend. Everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back with something with the high school football, Wiregrass High School Football Report come Monday, even though it's a holiday. And also SEC stuff. We got to recap all this stuff. And then we'll dive some more, I think, into some more Troy football next week as they will come off this Nevada game and we'll be going into Memphis, which will be an interesting game. Got somebody lined up to come on the show and let us know about the Memphis Tigers. What should we expect out of this team? Anyway, you can follow me on social media at PJordan.SEC. Podcast is all over the place, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Over at Wiregrass Daily News. Watch it on my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports, and all that good stuff. So email me if you need to or want to at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Brad, have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. Till then, bye-bye.